The wind that moved over the ruins carried the smell of rain and rust. The old fortress stood alone against the sky, its towers broken, its gates sunk half into the earth. They said no man had entered it for 100 years, and none who once lived. There had left behind a name. Yet when the storm came, the ground itself seemed to breathe, and the prison that had slept beneath the stones began to wake. Inside, the earth corridors twisted like veins, carved by hands that no longer existed. The walls, sweated water that ran down in silent streams, gathering in black pools on the floor. The air was heavy, too still, as if waiting for something to return. Somewhere in the dark, a sound echoed, faint but steady like a heart remembering how to beat Daidawi. Villagers on the hill swore they saw lights flicker behind the fortress windows that night, small and trembling like eyes opening after centuries. The oldest among them whispered that the prison was not built to hold men, but to hold something far older, something that had no name but had once been feared enough to bury alive. The king who ordered it built was long dead, his kingdom dust, but the walls remembered. At dawn, soldiers from the capital arrived, sent to inspect the ruins. They laughed at the stories as men do when they fear the truth. The captain was young, proud, his armor bright against the colorless sky. He said, "Stone cannot think, walls cannot breathe, and death does not wake." But when he stepped through the broken gate, the ground beneath him pulsed once slow and deep. They moved through the corridors, torches shaking shadows across the walls. Each step felt heavier, each breath harder, as if the air itself thickened around them. The captain reached the lowest hall, where a single, iron door stood untouched by rust. No lock, no handle, no key, only stone grown smooth from age. When he placed his hand on it, the door moved. It opened without a sound, and the darkness beyond it felt alive. The torchlight flickered, and the captain stepped. Inside, behind him, the door closed, not by wind or hand, but by its own will. The soldiers waited, but their captain did not return. They called his name until their voices broke. The fortress was silent once more. Yet from deep within the walls came that same sound again, faint, slow, unending. The cell had found another heartbeat. The fortress was quiet but not dead. The air inside it moved in ways the men outside could not understand. It carried whispers that did not belong to the living, and shadows that stretched too far from their light. The soldiers camped near the gate, waiting for their captain to return. Yet every hour that passed, the silence grew heavier, and the walls seemed to draw closer. One of the younger men, named Alric, could not sleep. He swore he heard footsteps pacing in the corridor, though none of them had dared enter again. He rose from the fire and walked to the archway, his torch trembling. His boots sank into dust that had not been touched for ages. The smell of the earth was thick and metallic, like old blood left to dry on iron. When he called for his captain, the sound went nowhere. It was swallowed whole by the walls. Alric turned back toward the camp, but the passage had changed behind him. The archway was gone, the air colder. He realized the fortress was not made of stone alone. It was made of memory, and memory was alive. Deep within the structure, the cell remembered faces, voices, and cries. It had held hundreds across centuries, thieves, traitors, prisoners, of war men forgotten by the world. Each left a piece of themselves within its walls, and those fragments never slept. The cell fed on them, fed on guilt, on fear, on the soft sound of despair that came when hope died. Alric walked deeper, drawn by something unseen. His torchlight flickered against carvings etched into the stone. They were not words, but marks of fingernails scratched until the flesh tore. There were hundreds of them, layered like stories written in agony. He reached out to touch one, and the stone was warm, too warm, as if something beneath it breathed. He tried to pull his hand back, but it would not move. His skin clung to the wall, his body rigid. The whispers around him grew clearer. Not voices, but echoes repeating a single thought. Over and over, remember me. Alric screamed, but the fortress did not echo him. It absorbed the sound the way a sea absorbs a drop of rain. Outside, the soldiers waited, listening to the wind, but none heard his cry. The fire burned low, the torches dimmed, and the fortress exhaled, slow and deep as if content. The cell had taken another soul, and with everyone it grew stronger. Long before the fortress fell to ruin, there was a king who feared the walls he had built. He feared not rebellion nor war, but the knowledge that what he imprisoned could not be contained by iron or stone. It was a secret that no man was meant to know, a presence older than kingdoms, older than the crown itself. The king had come to power on whispers and fear. His advisors told him of a prisoner, taken from the far reaches of the empire, a man accused of treason whose crime was never spoken aloud. He was brought to the fortress and placed in a cell that had never been designed to hold a mortal. It was said the walls themselves shifted and breathed when the man cried. Legends spoke of the king visiting the cell alone at midnight. When he peered through the small slit, he swore he saw eyes that glowed like molten gold and heard a voice that was not human, but familiar. It whispered truths about the world that no man could survive knowing. The king grew old in worry, growing paranoid and cruel. He feared what he could not understand, and so he commanded the cell to be sealed for eternity. The architect of the fortress obeyed and left. No door, no key, no path into the deepest hall. The cell became forgotten by the living, by kings, by time itself, but the prisoner never forgot. The walls remembered every word, every footstep, every sound, and they passed it to the stone, to the air, to the shadows. The secret endured, carried in silence, waiting for the day it would be heard again. Even in his final years, the king felt its presence. He awoke screaming in the dead of night. The cell called to him in whispers that echoed across empty halls. He sent priests and sorcerers to cleanse the fortress, to break the walls, but none returned. The cell did not open, but it watched and it learned from those who came close. It was alive in ways no man could imagine. When the king finally died, they said his face had aged decades in a single night. His hair turned white, his eyes hollow, and in his last breath he begged for forgiveness from a prisoner who had already vanished into the memory of stone and iron. The fortress survived him, untouched by time save for the pulse that ran beneath the deepest hall. Now, centuries later, the soldiers approached unaware of the secret that had been waiting. They thought they sought only dust and ruins, but the fortress had been awake all along, and the cell remembered everything. The soldiers waited at the threshold of the lowest hall, unsure of what to do. The air was heavy like water pressing against their chests. Their torches flickered, revealing shadows that moved just beyond their sight. Each step closer to the iron door made the world feel smaller, as if the walls themselves leaned toward them. The door was different from the rest of the fortress, its surface smooth, cold, and dark, like polished stone, yet somehow alive. The soldiers could feel it observing them, listening to their thoughts. Their boots made no sound on the floor, yet every heartbeat echoed loudly in the air. The youngest whispered a prayer that went unheard by anything human. One by one, they touched the surface and recoiled. The stone pulsed beneath their fingers, warm yet solid, and the faint hum of something alive filled the hall. The soldiers exchanged looks of fear, but none dared speak. The captain stepped forward, drawn by an invisible command. His hand hovered above the surface and then rested lightly on the door. It moved at once, opening slowly, though no hinges were seen. No sound came from the motion, only a change in the air, like a breath released after centuries of holding. It revealed a darkness that seemed to stretch farther than the fortress itself, and the temperature dropped as if the cell had exhaled. The captain peered inside and saw nothing at first, only black that swallowed the torchlight. Then shapes began to form, shadows of men, women and children frozen mid-step, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They spoke a single word repeated endlessly. "You are next." The soldiers stepped back, yet the door did not close. It waited, patient, eternal, and alive. The youngest soldier stumbled forward, his curiosity stronger than fear. His hand reached into the darkness, and the shadows bent toward him, pulling him silently inside. The captain lunged, but the shadows vanished, leaving only the echo of a scream. The air inside the hall shifted. The torchlight wavered and the door stood open, waiting again. Its hunger calm and endless. The fortress had taken another measure of life, and the cell within remembered each one. It had waited long enough for new souls to arrive, and it would wait much longer. Deep beneath the fortress, the walls pulsed with life as if the very stones breathed. The soldiers had retreated to the entrance, yet the air inside the lower halls carried the weight of what had been lost. Their torches flickered against shadows that twisted unnaturally across damp stone floors. Each corner seemed alive, whispering secrets of the centuries it had watched. At the center of the prison, a single stone rose from the floor, darker, smoother, and colder than the rest. It hummed faintly, drawing the eye like a magnet. Its surface reflected the torchlight with an unnatural glow, as if something within it waited for recognition. The soldiers dared not approach yet. Each step toward it felt inevitable, as if the fortress itself guided them. The captain's eyes locked on the heart of stone, and he saw faint shapes moving beneath its surface. Faces screaming silently, eyes pleading for release, and hands reaching out from within the cold, unforgiving mass. He felt a pull stronger than fear, stronger than reason. He knew that what lay there was not merely rock, but memory made tangible, a living archive of every soul the prison had ever claimed. The whispers grew louder around him, urging him forward, promising answers, promises that tasted like ash in the mouth. He reached a hand toward the surface and felt a vibration pulse through his fingers. The stone was alive. It remembered everything it had seen, everything it had held. It had taken life, and it had held it safely, like a mother holding a child too long in the dark. A sudden crack ran along the floor. The stone pulsed stronger. The fortress trembled as if waking from a long sleep. The shadows danced closer, and the air thickened. The captain could not turn back. He felt the cell itself pressing against his mind, pulling him inside. He whispered a prayer to gods long dead and to the walls that listened, and he stepped forward. The heart of stone accepted him silently. Its surface rippling faintly like water over rock. The fortress exhaled slow and deep, and for a moment time itself seemed to pause within the dungeon. Its memory was complete, yet it hungered for more. The deeper halls of the fortress seemed darker than before. The torchlight flickered, revealing shadows that moved of their own accord. They stretched and bent around the soldiers, following every step like living memories of the past. Every whisper of stone, every groan of iron carried with it the weight of forgotten cries. Alric felt them most. The shadows clung to his skin, brushing against him lightly, yet leaving a chill that sank into his bones. They were not hostile, yet not friendly. They remembered everything the fortress had ever witnessed. The soldiers dared not speak, for fear the shadows might answer with truths they could not bear. The walls pulsed softly, as if breathing with their own rhythm. The shadows gathered near the heart of stone, twisting around it, tracing faces and shapes that had long been swallowed by time. Each one told a story of despair, betrayal, courage, and fear. They circled the captain as well, their forms reflecting the pain of centuries. One soldier reached out, and his fingers brushed against a shadow. The touch was cold and fleeting, Yet it burned in his mind like a memory, not his own. He gasped and staggered back. The shadow dissolved into the air, leaving only a faint echo, a soft repetition of a single word. Remember. The fortress waited silent, yet awake. Each shadow a witness, a prisoner, and a keeper at once. They whispered to the stones, to the air, to one another, their voices rising and falling like waves against cliffs unseen. The soldiers felt their minds bend around the rhythm of the walls and knew that nothing here could ever be forgotten. The captain realized that the prison was not simply alive. It remembered. It held not just bodies, but the essence of all who had crossed its threshold. And somewhere deep within the stone and shadow, the cell waited, patient, eternal, and hungry. The captain stood alone before the heart of stone. His reflection appeared in its dark surface. Not his own, but another face, older and hollow-eyed. He reached toward it and felt the image shift, slipping through his fingers like water. He staggered backward, unable to look away. The shadow of the man inside the stone whispered faintly. Its voice carried centuries of solitude and wisdom. It spoke of mistakes and survival, of fear and hope, all intertwined into a rhythm that echoed the heartbeat of the fortress. The captain realized he was seeing not what the prisoner had been, but what the prison itself had become. Alric felt his mind bend. The shadows clung to him, pulling memories from his past, twisting them into visions he could not control. He saw faces of men he did not know, voices of those who had vanished into the walls, and hands reaching endlessly into nothing. The heart of stone was alive, and it had learned to remember. The captain stepped closer, drawing strength from fear itself. His reflection spoke to him silently, and he understood that the fortress was not evil, only eternal. It demanded recognition, demanded witnesses to its memory, to ensure that nothing was ever truly lost. The prisoner was not a man, but a record, a heartbeat, and the cell was its voice. The shadows circled them both, silently watching, waiting. Their forms elongated and merged with the walls. They remembered every step, every scream, every whispered secret that had ever passed through the corridors of stone. Alric knew then that to leave this place without understanding would mean leaving the fortress incomplete and hungry. The heart of stone pulsed beneath his feet, and he whispered softly, "I see you, I remember, you will not be forgotten." And the fortress exhaled, slow, as if pleased with the first acknowledgement in centuries. The fortress shifted as if responding to the captain's words. Each corridor stretched longer, the shadows moving across the walls like ink spreading on water. Every heartbeat echoed endlessly in the damp stone air. It was a pulse, older than the kingdom, older than the crown. The soldiers watched silently, unsure of what had changed. They felt the whispers growing louder, memories layering over one another, voices speaking simultaneously, telling stories that had never reached the world above. The air smelled of iron and earth and something sweeter, the taste of memory itself. Alric felt a presence behind him. The shadows gathered and parted, revealing faint shapes of those who had been taken. They were not threatening, only silent observers, watching him understand the fortress had stored their lives, their choices, their suffering like threads woven into the walls. He stepped toward them, and the shadows swirled faster around the heart of stone, pulling at the edges of reality, bending the air until it seemed alive. The whispers became voices, clearer this time, repeating names, dates, moments long forgotten. The fortress was not just remembering, it was teaching. It was showing the living. What the forgotten carried. One soldier fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of centuries. He tried to scream, but his voice was absorbed by the walls. His eyes widened as visions of those who had vanished danced before him, and he realized the fortress held the balance between memory and oblivion, Alric whispered a prayer for the forgotten, for the prisoners, for the shadows that lived within stone, and for the heart itself. He promised to carry the memory to the world above, and the fortress responded with a pulse strong and steady, reminding him that every echo mattered, every life counted. The fortress stirred once more. The walls shifted subtly, moving like breathing creatures alive with intention. The shadows stretched and twined across stone and air, each pulse a signal, a heartbeat, a story carried silently. Alric felt the ground beneath his feet hum with energy. The heart of stone vibrated stronger than before. It seemed to call to him, drawing him closer, yet also warning him not to touch too deeply. The whispers became songs layered over centuries of existence. They spoke of kings long dead, of soldiers who had vanished, of prisoners who had been forgotten. The captain realized that the fortress itself was alive, not as a man would be, but as the sum of every soul, every memory, every shadow that had ever entered its halls. It waited for recognition, for understanding, for the living, to bear witness to the eternity contained within its walls. Suddenly the stone walls shimmered faintly like water disturbed by wind. The shadows separated, revealing hidden carvings etched so deeply they had never been seen before. Alric traced them with his hand, and the fortress pulsed, acknowledging him as if approving his touch. The whispers intensified, now layered with emotion, joy, fear, regret, and hope. They danced in the air around him, bending the light, and the torch flame trembled in response. The fortress was awake and aware, and it had found a visitor willing to see it as it truly was. He spoke softly to the walls, acknowledging every life, every whisper, every shadow, and the fortress exhaled in response, releasing a pulse that traveled through every corridor, every cell, every stone, letting the soldiers know that the prison had found recognition after centuries of silence. Alric understood at last that the prisoner of the fortress was no longer human. The heart of stone had become its own being, a keeper of memory, a guardian of life and death inside the walls. The shadows were its servants and witnesses to ensure the balance remained. He stepped carefully past the heart of stone and felt a strange weight lift from the air. The fortress seemed less oppressive, less hungry, yet stronger, more alive. It acknowledged his presence and his understanding in ways no words could capture. The whispers slowed to a calm rhythm and the shadows paused, giving him space to breathe. The soldiers watched in awe as their captain moved among shadows and stone. He seemed smaller, yet larger, somehow part of the fortress, yet separate. His eyes reflected the golden glow of memory, the pulse of lives long gone, and he whispered promises that the heart of stone would carry above the fortress, above the world. He understood that the prison had always been alive, and that every man, woman, and child taken into its walls had contributed to its pulse. To ignore it, to forget, it would unbalance the world above. The fortress was not evil. It was eternal and patient, and it required only witnesses to maintain its rhythm. Alric spoke aloud, though no one else could hear, and the walls responded in faint vibrations, carrying his words to places unseen. He promised to carry the story to the world above, to ensure that the forgotten were remembered and that the fortress would never hunger again. The soldiers emerged into the light of dawn, changed forever. The fortress behind them stood silent, yet alive. The shadows within returned to the walls. The corridors settled. The heart of stone pulsed faintly beneath. Centuries of rock like a heartbeat contained. Alric looked back once and saw a flicker, a movement almost like a bow before vanishing. He knew the fortress had accepted his witness, and that the cell that had claimed countless lives had finally been understood. He carried the memory in his mind and his soul in the stories he would tell. The village below noticed a change. The wind carried whispers through the trees. Shadows seemed softer. Rivers moved smoother. The birds flew in patterns unfamiliar, yet harmonious. The fortress had released part of its weight, though it remained alive and patient, waiting for the next witness. Years later, Alric told the story in whispers, only to those who would listen. He spoke of a prison that guards itself, of shadows that remember, of stone that pulses with the memory of centuries. He told of the heart of stone that carries the soul of every forgotten prisoner, and the whispers that never cease. The fortress remained behind hills and fog, silent to the world, yet alive and eternal. Its cells waited patient, its walls breathing with memory. It would never leave and it would never sleep. The shadows watched the living and the dead alike, reminding the world that to forget is to invite hunger and to witness is to live. The story of the forgotten cell spread slowly, carried by memory and curiosity. It became legend. It became truth. The fortress waits still, and those who enter it today know that it is not merely stone, not merely shadow, not merely a prison. It is eternity, and every soul within it matters.